Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're investigating the ultimate historical group chat debate. What was the original name of the massive, incredibly diverse continent we now call Africa? Now, if you spend any time in history forums, you've absolutely seen a very specific, very confident claim floating around. We're going to unpack that claim today, literally frame by frame.
So let's start with this viral claim that way before European colonization, the entire landmass was universally known as Alkebulan, which supposedly translates to Mother of Mankind or the Garden of Eden. And hey, it's a powerful idea. It sounds ancient, it sounds unifying, and honestly, people present it as this absolute, undeniable fact used by Moors, Nubians, Carthaginians, and Ethiopians alike. But is it actually historically accurate?
To find out, we are going to treat this like a forensic investigation. Picture this whole explainer as a graphic novel where we are the detectives, hunting for verifiable clues, primary sources, and undeniable historical receipts. You know, we aren't interested in rumors here. We want the ink on the page and the carvings in the stone. So let's flip to our first panel of evidence.
Well, what's really interesting is how the linguistics fall apart completely when we put that Alkebulan etymology under the microscope. The claim mixes languages that just do not belong together. Like Alk is the Arabic definite article, right? But the rest of the word is claimed to be Kemetic or ancient Egyptian. But ancient Egyptian uses totally different sounds for thee, for black, and for people. The actual record clearly shows the root word for black and Egyptian is km and people is rimicha. There is absolutely no len root attested in the language at all.
And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast when we look at Arabic. You see a really common pivot is that Alkebulan is actually Arabic for land of the blacks. But checking our forensic record, the documented 1,200-year-old Arabic term for that is actually Balad es-Sudan. That's a phrase in continuous use by geographers since the 9th century CE. It's so well documented that the modern country of Sudan literally takes its name from it. Alkebulan, on the other hand, completely absent from ancient primary sources.
So, where did the word actually come from? In a classic plot twist worthy of a noir comic, the book constantly cited as the primary source for this myth is, well, it's a total phantom. If you track the citations online, they all point to a book called Kemetic History of Africa by the esteemed scholar Cheech Anta Diop. The only problem? He never wrote it. The term was actually popularized in the 20th century by Yusuf ben Jochanan, so it's a modern reclamation term, not an ancient indigenous one.
Okay, so if the 20th century reclamation term Alkebulan isn't the ancient name, where did the word Africa actually come from? To understand that, we have to look at how a massive, amazingly diverse continent with thousands of languages ended up with just one label. And, spoiler alert, it didn't happen in a single meeting. It happened through map-making conventions over centuries, which represents a very real, very deep historical wound.
If we zoom in on the ancient Mediterranean, the true origin of the word Africa is actually a Roman administrative label. After Rome destroyed Carthage in 146 BCE, they established a province roughly where modern-day Tunisia is, and they called it Africa Proconsularis. The name stems from a local Berber or Amazigh group that the Romans called the Afri. So Africa literally just meant the land of the Afri. For most of antiquity, this word only referred to a tiny strip of land in the north, not the entire continent below it.
Let's move along the timeline a bit and see how this builds into the real colonial wound. For over 1,000 years, Africa stayed up north. But in the 15th through 17th centuries, European cartographers, like Mercator, started extending that Roman word down their maps to cover the entire landmass. They gradually flattened dozens of incredibly rich, completely distinct civilizations under one single externally imposed word.
But here's the thing. The people of this continent didn't wait for Rome or Europe to name them. Let's crack open the vault and look at the real, indigenous names, the ones actually inked on ancient papyrus and carved in stone. These are the verifiable receipts you can use to understand the true historical landscape.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is Kemet. This is a beautifully documented indigenous self-designation literally meaning the Black Land, and it's verified going all the way back to 3000 BCE. I mean, it is carved into the pyramid texts, the coffin texts, and it even appears 3 times on the Rosetta Stone itself. It is unimpeachable indigenous proof of an ancient people naming their own civilization. And what's super fascinating is that the Egyptians didn't just have one single name for their territory. They also affectionately called their home Tam Meri, which translates to the beloved land. Used in hymns to the Nile and temple dedications, this proves that these ancient civilizations were deeply connected to their geography, and they certainly didn't rely on a single, externally imposed label to define themselves.
Moving deeper into our evidence file, we find Ta Seti.
This is one of the earliest documented place names in all of human writing, dating back to around 3500 BCE. It translates to the land of the bow, which is a really respectful nod to the legendary, unmatched archery skills of the Nubian people. And this completely predates the unified Egyptian state. Then we have the mighty kingdom of Kush. This was a powerful empire with incredibly deep roots. Their black African pharaohs, like Taharka, who, by the way, is even documented in the biblical text of 2 Kings, eventually ruled all of Egypt during the 25th dynasty. They left an undeniable, documented legacy carved across monumental stelae that you can literally still read today.
And we absolutely must include Aksum. This was a true global superpower located in modern-day Ethiopia and Eritrea. Under King Ezana, they minted their own gold coins. In fact, the Persian king Mani listed Aksum alongside Rome, Persia, and China as one of the 4 great powers of the entire 3rd century world. That is huge.
Scanning the historical landscape, the record is stacked with even more receipts. We have the legendary land of Punt, which the Egyptians called the land of the gods. We have the impossibly wealthy Mali Empire, ruled by Mansa Musa, whose 1324 pilgrimage was so lavish it literally crashed the gold market for a decade. Songhai, Great Zimbabwe, Benin, Ghana. These were completely distinct, highly organized polities, and each had their own proud names.
But our investigation reveals another incredible fact that usually gets completely left out of these conversations. The people of this continent were drawing their own maps of their diverse kingdoms in incredible detail centuries before European explorers ever set sail. Africa was never just a blank spot waiting to be discovered.
Brilliant North African and Arab scholars traveled and mapped the world with astonishing sophistication, completely bypassing the European gaze. Al-Idrisi created one of the most advanced world maps of the medieval period, over 350 years before Columbus. Ibn Battuta traveled way more than Marco Polo, documenting the prosperous kingdoms of West Africa firsthand. And Ibn Khaldun is widely considered the father of historiography. They knew exactly what these lands were called.
Now that we've pieced together the panels of this investigation, it's time to arm you with a tactical playbook. Because look, if you care about history, this debate will inevitably hit your group chat or your social media feed. And you need to know exactly how to navigate it without stepping on historical landmines.
Here is your 3-move shutdown to gracefully win the argument. Notice that we never invalidate the very real colonial history of the continent. Step 1, you concede the truth about the mapmakers. Step 2, you pivot away from the weak modern myth. And Step 3, you stack up the undeniable proof of indigenous history. Let's look at exactly how this sounds in practice.
Hey, I hear you. The colonial renaming is a real wound. Africa is a Roman label extended by European cartographers. You validate that anger. But then you firmly pivot. You say, but the receipt isn't Alkebulan. The real receipt is Kemet. And then you stack up Aksum, Kush, and Mali as your bulletproof evidence. You show them that the truth is actually much grander than a single made-up word.
The vital synthesis here is to avoid defending a debunked 20th century reclamation term. Seriously, don't die on the Alkebulan Hill. Anyone with a basic linguistics background can dismantle it, and that just weakens your broader argument. The truth of a multi-named, richly diverse continent with dozens of thriving civilizations is infinitely stronger than pretending it was always just one big, homogeneous country.
I really want you to take a mental snapshot of this next part, or just straight up screenshot it right now. It's the streamlined mic drop paragraph that perfectly summarizes our entire forensic investigation. It goes, Africa is a Roman label, but the indigenous receipt isn't Alkebulan. The receipt is Kemet, and Kemet wasn't alone. Africa had dozens of names because Africa was never one place. That's the colonial wound, the flattening, and the receipts to prove it have been carved in stone for 5,000 years.
We've seen today that the actual indigenous record is so deep, so sophisticated, and so undeniable that we simply don't need modern myths sending in for real history. When you build your foundation on verifiable primary sources, on the actual ink and stone of our ancestors, no one can knock you off your square.
So now that you have the true receipts in your hands, from the black lands of Kemet to the gold coins of Aksum and the bowmen of Taseti, the question is yours to answer. When the group chat lights up next time, are you ready to share the undeniable truth and reshape the conversation? Keep learning, keep reading the primary panels of history, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.